Today I am going to show you how to find prime numbers up to 100. You can also choose any other number besides 100. 1 is not a prime number. That's why I didn't write it down. We are looking at all natural numbers greater than 1. Let's look at the first number. We know 2 is prime. Recall that prime numbers are numbers which are only divisible by themselves and by 1. What we are going to do now is to cross out multiples of 2. Crossing out the multiples of 2 means that they cannot be prime numbers because they are multiples of 2. So 4 is not a prime number, 6 is not a prime number, 8 is not a prime number, 10 is not a prime number, and so on. All these numbers cannot be prime. Let's look at the next number, which is prime, because 3 is not crossed out. In other words, 3 is prime because the 3 is not a multiple of a smaller number. Again, now we cross out multiples of 3. 6 is crossed out, we don't need to cross it out again. 9 is multiple of 3. 12 is already crossed out, 15 is a multiple of 3. 18 is already crossed out, 21 is a multiple of 3, and so on. All multiples of 3 are crossed out now. The next number is 5, which is prime, because it is not crossed out. In other words, 5 is not a multiple of a smaller number. 10 is already crossed out because of 5 times 2. The 15 is already crossed out because of 5 times 3. 20 is already crossed out because of 5 times 2 times 2. 25 is not crossed out, which is 5 times 5, so we can cross out 25. 30 is already crossed out. 35 is not crossed out, which is 5 times 7, so let's cross out 35. 40, 45 and 50 are crossed out. 55 is not crossed out, so let's cross it out. 60 is crossed out. 65 is not crossed out. 70, 75 and 80 are crossed out. 85 is not crossed out. 90 is crossed out. And 95 is not crossed out. Let's look at the next number, which is 7. 14, 21, 28, 35 and 42 are crossed out. 49 is not crossed out. 56, 63 and 70 are crossed out. 77 is not crossed out. So let's cross out 77. 84 is crossed out. 91 is not crossed out. And 98 is crossed out. The next number which is not crossed out is 11. So 11 has to be prime. So let's see. 22 is crossed out, 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88 and 99. Let's look at the next number, which is 13. So 13 has to be prime. 26 is crossed out, 39 is crossed out, 52 is crossed out, 65 is crossed out, 78 is crossed out, and 91 is crossed out. That's weird. Why don't we need to cross out any more numbers? Let's look at the next number, which is 17. So 17 has to be prime. 34 is crossed out, 51 is crossed out, 68 is crossed out, and 85 is crossed out. Why are all these numbers already crossed out? I can tell you that we are done. We don't need to cross out any more numbers. Why not? This is a little bit tricky and not high school level anymore, but if you want, feel free to pause the video and think about it. Let's look at the 11 and explain why we don't have to cross out multiples of 11. The multiples of 11 have to be numbers less than 11 in order to cross out numbers less than 100, right? Because when we multiply 11 with numbers greater than or equal to 11, we get numbers which are greater than 100. But we don't need numbers which are greater than 100 because we want to cross out numbers less than 100. So again, when we want to multiply the 11 by a number in order to find numbers to cross out, then we have to multiply the 11 with a smaller number than 11. Is that correct? Yes, indeed it is. But we already did that. We multiplied 11 by 2, 11 by 3, 11 by 5, and 11 by 7. In other words, we multiplied 2 by 11, 3 by 11, 5 by 11, and 7 by 11. So no need to do that again. Let me explain that in general. In this example, n equals 100. We can write the n as the square root of n times the square root of n. This is very important now. Let's say this divisor is smaller than the square root of n. Then the other one has to be greater than the square root of n because both have to be n. Or let's say this one is greater than the square root of n, then the other one has to be smaller than the square root of n, because both have to be n. To make it short, it's enough to cross out multiples of the square root of 100, which is 10. 11 is greater than 10, so we don't need to cross out multiples of 11. So when we step over the square root of 100, which is 10, then we need a second divisor, which is less than 10. But we already have taken them into consideration. If you like my videos, like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy learning everyone.